You know how some kids have those picture-perfect childhoods? Mine looked like that on the outside. My dad was, and still is, a really successful guy. He built his empire from nothing, truly the American dream. And because of that, we lived a life of comfort, bordering on luxury. Big house, fancy cars, private schools, the whole 9 yards. I never had to worry about money, not once. It wasn't about being spoiled necessarily, it was just there. It was the air I breathed. My mom, his first wife, passed away when I was pretty young, which was tough, obviously. But my dad, bless his heart, he tried his best to fill that void. He was always there for me, always made sure I felt loved and secure. He worked hard, but he always made time for me, for my soccer games, my school plays. Our relationship was solid, built on trust and a deep understanding. He always told me, "Honey, you'll never have to worry. I've got you covered." And I believed him, implicitly. Why wouldn't I? He was my hero. Then came Linda. My dad met her a few years after my mom passed. At first, she seemed fine, charming even. She was beautiful, stylish, always knew the right thing to say. I was a teenager then, and honestly, I was just happy to see my dad happy again. He deserved it. They got married pretty quickly, and for a while things were okay. Linda was sweet, attentive. She'd ask about my day, pretend to be interested in my hobbies. But slowly, subtly, things started to shift. It was like a slow, creeping vine, tightening its grip without you even realizing it. She started taking over the household, which made sense, but then she started making decisions about my life. My school, my clothes, my friends. Small things at first, things I could just shrug off. "Oh, Linda just wants what's best for you, honey," my dad would say, and I'd nod, trying to convince myself it was true. But the best for me started to feel more like best for Linda. My dad, who was always so present, started spending more and more time at the office, or so I thought. He seemed distracted. And Linda? She filled that void. All right, but not in a comforting way. She became the gatekeeper. "Want to talk to Dad?" "He's busy." "Need something?" "Ask Linda." It was like she was building a wall around him, brick by brick. And the worst part was, my dad didn't seem to notice. Or maybe he did, and he was just too tired to fight it. My allowance, which used to come directly from my dad, suddenly came from Linda, with a lecture about spending habits. My car, a gift from my dad for my 16th birthday, suddenly needed maintenance all the time, and I'd be stuck without it for days, sometimes weeks. My credit cards, which were supposed to be for emergencies and school supplies, were constantly monitored, and I'd get stern calls from Linda if I bought anything she deemed unnecessary. It felt like I was living in a golden cage. I had all the trappings of wealth, but no real freedom, no control over my own life. And the closer I got to graduating high school, the more the tension grew. I knew I was going to college. That was always the plan. But a little voice in my head started whispering, "What if this isn't going to be as smooth as you think?" That little voice. It was right. Oh, it was so right. The day I turned 18, I thought things would change. I thought I'd finally be an adult, free from Linda's suffocating grip. Boy, was I naive. Instead of freedom, I got an ultimatum. I was sitting at the breakfast table, my dad across from me, looking unusually grim. Linda was there too, sipping her coffee, a little smirk playing on her lips. "Sweetheart," my dad started, his voice soft, almost apologetic. "Linda and I have been discussing your future." My stomach dropped. I knew this wasn't going to be good. He went on to explain, very gently, that while he loved me dearly, he felt it was time for me to learn financial responsibility. Linda chimed in, her voice saccharine sweet. "Yes, darling, it's for your own good. We want you to be independent." And then came the bombshell. My college fund, which I knew was substantial, was suddenly being reevaluated. And my living expenses? From now on, they would be tightly managed by Linda. What did that mean? It meant my stepmom cut me off from everything. Not completely. Not yet. But it felt like the leash was getting shorter and shorter. I was furious, hurt, and utterly confused. I looked at my dad, begging for an explanation with my eyes. He just avoided my gaze, rubbing the back of his neck. "It's a new chapter, honey," he mumbled. "A new chapter of hell. More like it." Linda took over completely. My allowance was slashed to almost nothing, barely enough for gas and a coffee. Any extra expenses, even textbooks for college, had to be approved by her, and she rarely did. She'd scrutinize every receipt, question every purchase. It was humiliating. I felt like a child, not an adult about to embark on university life. I tried talking to my dad, pleading with him. "Dad, what's going on? You always said you'd take care of me." He'd sigh, say things like, "Linda has a good head for finances, you'll thank her one day." Or, "We just want you to learn the value of $1. But it wasn't about learning the value of $1. It was about control. Pure, unadulterated control. The tension at home was unbearable. I spent most of my time in my room, trying to figure out what to do. I had gotten into my dream university, a prestigious one, and the tuition was astronomical. Without my dad's full support, I knew I couldn't go. I started looking into student loans, scholarships, anything to escape Linda's iron fist. It was a desperate time. I even considered deferring a year, but the thought of another year under Linda's thumb was soul-crushing. One day, I overheard Linda on the phone. She was talking about restructuring assets and protecting the family's future. My future. She clearly meant her future. A cold dread settled in my stomach. Something was seriously wrong. I started doing my own digging, discreetly, mind you. I looked up financial planning terms, tried to understand what restructuring assets really meant in a legal sense, and that's when I stumbled upon something that made my blood run cold. My dad had set up a trust for me years ago, a substantial one, specifically for my education and future financial security. It was supposed to be untouchable until I turned 25. But according to the documents I managed to find buried deep in his old files, the trustee had recently been changed. And guess who the new trustee was? Linda. The knot in my stomach tightened. This wasn't about teaching me financial responsibility. This was about cutting me out. And I knew, with a chilling certainty, that I had to fight. I was scared, but I was also furious. This wasn't just about money. It was about betrayal. It was about my dad, my hero, letting this happen. I knew I couldn't confront Linda directly. She'd just deny everything or twist it back on me. My dad wouldn't listen. I needed help. Real help. So, I did the only thing I could think of. I looked up lawyers. It felt incredibly adult and terrifying, walking into a law firm feeling so vulnerable. I chose one that specialized in estate planning and family law, hoping they'd understand. I explained my situation, my voice trembling at first, then growing steadier as I recounted Linda's gradual takeover, the financial cutoffs, and finally, the discovery of the trust change. The lawyer, a kind-looking woman named Miss Davies, listened patiently, taking notes. She asked a lot of questions, her expression unreadable. I laid out all the evidence I had, the cryptic documents, the notes I'd taken of Linda's controlling behavior. When I finished, the room was silent. I braced myself for a lecture, for skepticism, for her to tell me I was overreacting. Instead, Miss Davies leaned back in her chair, a thoughtful expression on her face. Then, she let out a small chuckle. I stared at her, confused, hurt. Was she making fun of me? Was this some kind of joke? My face must have shown my bewilderment, because she quickly straightened up, a genuine smile replacing her serious demeanor. And then the lawyer started laughing. Not a mean, mocking laugh, but a genuine, almost joyful laugh, full of amusement and a hint of something else, perhaps a touch of disbelief, maybe even admiration. It wasn't the boisterous, theatrical laugh you see in movies, but a quiet, sustained ripple of mirth that completely disarmed me. She saw my confusion and waved a hand. "Forgive me, dear," she said, still chuckling softly. This is quite the story, isn't it? But more importantly," she paused, regaining her composure, "it's a story I've heard before, many, many times." She then explained. My dad, bless his naive heart, had indeed set up a rock-solid trust for me years ago. It was ironclad, designed specifically to protect me and my inheritance. And the clause about the trustee change? It required my written consent or, in the event of my incapacitation, a court order, neither of which had happened. Linda, in her infinite greed and cunning, had somehow convinced my dad to sign papers that she claimed were for tax purposes or estate streamlining, but were actually attempts to gain control of my trust. Miss Davies said that such attempts, while often sneaky, rarely hold up in court when challenged properly. She saw the evidence I had, she saw the paper trail, and she knew exactly what Linda was trying to do. "Your stepmother," she said, a hint of steel in her voice, "is playing a very dangerous game, and she just walked into a legal trap of her own making." She then explained that the particular trust my dad set up had a very specific and highly effective clause. Any attempt to tamper with the trust by an unauthorized party would trigger an immediate audit of all family assets and a review of the original trust terms. In simpler terms, Linda's attempt to cut me off had just opened a Pandora's box she never intended to open. The laughter, I realized, was because Linda's elaborate scheme had just spectacularly backfired. We proceeded with legal action, and it was a whirlwind. My dad was, understandably, shocked and heartbroken when he realized the extent of Linda's deception. It broke him to see how she had manipulated him, how she had driven a wedge between us. The truth about her financial misdeeds, which Miss Davies' investigation uncovered, was far worse than I could have imagined. She wasn't just trying to cut me off. She was systematically siphoning off my dad's assets, funneling them into shell corporations, and making plans to leave him high and dry. The whole thing blew up. Linda was exposed, not just as a manipulative stepmom, but as a full-blown fraudster. The trust was restored, more secure than ever, and I finally got to go to my dream university, with my dad's full, unwavering support, this time with a deep understanding of who he could truly trust. My relationship with my dad healed, stronger than ever, built on a new kind of honesty. Linda, well, she got what she deserved. And me? I learned a hell of a lot about trust, betrayal, and the unexpected power of a lawyer's laughter. It was a brutal lesson, but it taught me that even in the darkest moments sometimes, the universe has a way of serving up justice, with a side of unexpected humor. So yeah, that's my story. Crazy, right?